I believe in me.
I believe in me.
I believe in you.
I believe in you.
Stand strong. You are powerful.
Stand strong. You are inspiring.
We are fighters. We are ambitious.
We are extraordinary. We are conquerors. Simply straight talk, our voices will be heard.
This is Simply Straight Talk. Tune in now, you don't want to miss out. Real conversation, plenty motivation. Keep you thinking and still entertaining. Yeah, I know that you'll enjoy the mottos free. Your voice is your choice. Hosted by Reggie B, but you already know. And you gotta check them out and how we roll. Hey, ain't nothing off the table. Give it to you straight. Changing your mindset, talking past mistakes. You ain't gotta wait, time to take off. This is Simply Straight Talk.
I'm Melissa, and this is the Simply Straight Talk podcast, where we engage in solution-based conversations with tips on how to overcome and move past the challenges and struggles we face in life. So join in, and let's show the world you got what it takes. It's showtime. Let's hop on this train of motivation.
Hey everybody, what's up? And welcome to another episode of the Simply Straight Talk podcast. What's up, people? What's up? What's up? This your man, Reggie. Listen, I'm a little tired today, so y'all gotta excuse me, because look here, I'm trying to hang in there. Listen, I hope everybody enjoyed your Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving with family and friends. But as a reminder, just want to tell everybody, man, y'all just remember during this holiday season, be safe, keep it cool, be chill. You know what I'm saying? But listen, let's go ahead and hop into the show. If you have not subscribed to this podcast, please make sure you do. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a comment, share your feedback. Let me know what you think about the episodes. I will definitely respond back. Oh, man, you know what? I miss my partners, man, Angelique and Melissa. But we definitely working on getting them back on. It's the holiday. Y'all know how it go. People working out here trying to handle their business. But today I want to do a show that's going to kind of set up some future episodes, because I want to talk about topics that men and women just seem to can't discuss. And I got 3 particular topics I want to start off with. But I definitely want to kind of hit on these topics. And then later on, I want to bring in Angelique and Melissa so we can give a woman's perspective of what they think about these topics. Now, me and Angelique kind of talked about one of them a little bit, just in general conversation. But I definitely want to get a more full scope and share that with you guys. So if they're on board, we will definitely set that up, you know what I'm saying, so we can get the whole crew back together and y'all can hear what's going on. But I wanted to do this because I've been hearing more and more conversations take place, and it just seems like men and women just can't seem to have these conversations without one person getting in their feelings, whether it be the male or the female, or where it just turns into a show of where some people just sitting back and saying, well, I'm not going to say nothing, you know, because a lot of times that's what happened. You get some people that are overly expressive and their emotions take over. And then you get some people who just kind of sit back and just be like, you know what, just to keep the peace and get through this, I'm just going to say as little as possible, not really open up and just have minimum thoughts about the whole thing. Let's just get through it. And when we are having a conversation as an open dialogue between 2 people or multiple people, it shouldn't be to where a person feel like they have to shut down, especially if it's an open panel. You know, like when we have a discussion and it's me, Melissa, and Angelique, never would I want them to feel like I can't say what I really feel or open up about what I really want to say or think about something. You know, whatever our personal beliefs are, you know, we respect that, and we respect that with each other. So I would never want them to feel like that. And I know they would never want me to feel like that. So I think that's why it's important that people have to understand that people are going to have different views. They're going to have different opinions. And I kind of talked about that in my last episode when I talked about how overly sensitive some people have become when it comes to people having their own personal beliefs and ideas. But today I want to jump into why men and women just can't seem to discuss certain topics. And the first one is something that me and Angelique kind of touched on, and more of a just like a joking around conversation on the phone, was what do you bring to the table? When a man asks a woman, what do you bring to the table? This seems to come off as a shocker based on what I've seen as far as people having this conversation. It gets to the point to where some women are just kind of like, whoa, 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 whoa. Did you really just ask me that? I'm offended. I don't like that. Why are you asking me that question? I would never ask anybody that question. And me and Angelique kind of bounces back and forth. But my thing is, when it comes to this topic of a man asking a woman, what do you bring to the table? This is what I share with Angelique. I really feel like because women have never really had to answer this question. So that's just my personal feeling about it. I think we're getting into a day and time to where at one point, men have always been expected to explain what is their reasoning for dating someone? What makes them worthy to have this woman as a wife, as a girlfriend, or to date somebody? Men have always had to explain what they are bringing to the table. Even back in the old days, it was like, hey, old days, it was like, we own a farm. So, to prove my worth to your daughter, I'm gonna give y'all these 10 goats and these 2 cows, because you had to prove your worth and you had to explain what is you're bringing to the table. And I think now this question is being posed to women who have never really had to answer this question. So women have never really had to sit at the table and explain what is it they're offering in a relationship outside of their body and the baby and the baby. And I told y'all I'm tired. Women have never really had to explain outside of their looks. Like normally for women, it's like their looks, their body, and the ability to carry on a guy's name. So it was kind of like, that's it. Like, that's what you're getting. And for some women, even today, it's like, that's enough. Look at me. And I even heard some women, when they was asked this question, their response was, well, you're getting me. Now, some people say I would never ask that question, but I was dating this lady, and we have been dating kind of like for about 4 or 5 years. We have known each other, and we were sort of dating. And I asked her, like, what do you feel you bring to a relationship? Or what do you feel you bring to the table? And her answer was I'm bringing me. And I think that's the thing when it comes to that question. I think it's to the point to where women are now being asked this question when they never had to answer this question before. So for them to be asked this question is coming off as insulting. So this is one of the topics that men and women just can't seem to discuss, because when they do, it turns into an argument. And I don't think it's the fact that women, don't want to answer the question. I think they just, I'm not going to say all women, but some women just don't know how to answer the question, because it's a question they've never been asked. They've never been put in the position to where they went on a date and the man was like, I want to know more. It's not just about sex. It's not just about, having babies. It's like, what are you as a person, as a human being? What are you bringing emotionally? And for some people, look at the question, they think automatically that when you ask, what are you bringing to the table? Some people are thinking financially. What are you bringing financially? And I don't think that question is really centered around finances. I think these days, especially with people being more conscious about mental health, people are looking more at the fact of, what are you bringing to the table outside of finances, outside of your body? How are you going to help me cope in this world? How are you going to help me to exist in this world? What are we going to build together? And I think a lot of people now are just totally stuck on the fact of when they hear that question, it's centered around money. And one thing that me and Angelique kind of talked about was maybe the question is being asked in an innocent way, but it's highly possible. Well, we both agreed that the question probably needs to be rephrased, because right now we do live in a very financial driven society, especially when it comes to relationships. It's about what you got, how much you got. And I think for that question, when a man asks a woman, what are you bringing to the table? There's already a narrative going around that women are making more money than men and women are having to support men because men don't want to work. So women automatically assume that question, some women automatically assume that question is centered around money. And it's not really centered around money. I know me, versus the younger me, I never depended on a woman for nothing. I've always done for myself. But my thing now is, if I'm going to get into a relationship, I'm looking for more than just sex. I'm looking for more than just money. I'm looking for how can she be there as a teammate, as a partner that we can build together. That means we're going to need to have emotional strength, endurance. So it's more that. And I think more guys now are figuring that out. So that's why they're sort of going towards that question. But when that question is asked, it creates a lot of tension between men and women. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel it's okay if a man asks a woman, what are you bringing to the table? Are you offended by that question? Do you think a man should not ask that question? So how do you feel about that? What do you think about that question? Do you think the question needs to be revised and asked in a different way, or maybe with more clarification as to the intent behind asking the question? So those are some things around that question that creates controversy when men and women ask that question. And like I said, I think for some women, they never, ever been in the position to where they've had to actually answer that question. It was always their body. It was always, declare on a person's name and stuff like that. So next up, the next topic that many men and women just simply cannot discuss or cannot really just sit down and have a conversation with. And then this one right here. Oh my goodness. This can open up so many doors. For some people, it can open up some wounds for the men. It can open up some wounds for the women. Ooh, this is a good one. And I know I would love to see if Angelique and Melissa or someone wants to have this conversation, because this is a very touchy one. So it can get kind of personal, and I'm up for that, but I got to make sure they up for that. But should paternity tests be mandatory? Should paternity tests be mandatory anytime a child is being brought into this world? Now, this one definitely creates some tension. I mean, because this question has to be looked into, especially in regards to the fact of, now you're talking about the possibility of infidelity. You're talking about the possibility of, a person wanting to accept a child, not wanting to accept a child. Where's the relationship between the two people? And I understand where this comes from. And often when I hear this conversation, you get most of the men are like, yeah, I'm for it. Most of the women that I've heard, especially on a couple of shows, have always been like, I think it's wrong for a man to request a paternity test, especially if they've been in a marriage. Like one lady on one show kept saying, if we're married, he should never ask for a paternity test. My thinking is, why not? Why not? And her thinking was, because you're married. But that doesn't mean that a woman won't cheat. And I think people see and want to come to the conclusion that men cheat and women don't cheat. That's sort of how it was coming across in the conversation. It's like some of the women did not want to recognize the fact that women do cheat. They did not want to acknowledge that. They wanted to keep swinging the question back on men. And they did not want to acknowledge the fact that there are women out here that do cheat, and they are married, and they have been in relationships for a while. But they did not want to acknowledge that. So they didn't really want to jump into that. But men are looking at it from the perception, from the perspective of, there are men out here who are raising children and in relationships, and the child is not theirs. And they are being led for years to believe that, this child is theirs. And then they come to find out that the child is not theirs. They paid so much money in child support. And the only thing the government says is, oh, well, you know what I'm saying? Because this has affected this guy's life for 10 years or 18 years, to where he's contributed all this money just to come to find out that the child is not his. Not only that, the other issue is the guy has to deal with the fact of he's now trying to deal with the emotional aspect of this child that he has come to know as his, he believes is his. Now his whole world is being shaken in the fact that the child is not his. And now he has to deal with those emotions. But a lot of times, some women seem to feel like men don't know how to feel, like men don't know how to, basically they're saying that men don't have emotions when it comes to kids. Like, men don't understand what it is to be in a relationship and to actually love. So it's like this sort of dismissing that aspect, that men do feel, like men do have emotions, like men do care. And I think that creates a big communication in this situation when these men and women get into the point to where they have this conversation and you're talking about paternity tests, and you're talking about paternity tests becoming mandatory. Ooh, that can open up a can of worms, but you know what? Y'all stick with it, because I'm about to drop some real heat on this one right here when we come back right after the break.
Free your mind, free your voice right here on Simply Straight Talk.
Hey, are you looking for some great music, upbeat and with a positive voice? Well, the song I Stand With You is exactly what you need. This timeless song has a pop version sung by Audrey Carmel. And a reggae version sung by General Steele, now known as Revelation.
Now I know some days you may feel blue, Lord. Trust in your greatness to see you through.
These songs are now available on iTunes and other digital platforms for download. Don't miss out. Get your copy today.
Give life your best, and I know.
We're back with the conversation starter and the voice that works harder. Your host, Reggie.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Simply Straight Talk podcast. Listen, today we're talking about 3 topics that men and women can't discuss. Now, it's not that they can't discuss it. It's just emotions from both sides jumps into the picture and creates a catastrophe for an open dialogue, open to opportunity. Now, in the first part of the show, we talked about what do you bring to the table is the question that sets off men and women. We also talked about should paternity tests be mandatory, which we're going to conclude here in a little bit. But when I think about the conversations I have observed between men and women, it's for some reason turns into a tick for tack thing. If the guy says, well, men feel like this, it's one of those things where women say, well, we felt like that for you. It's this constant problem of a person's feelings being dismissed, or what someone has experienced being dismissed, because it's basically the game of playing who's been hurt the most. My hurts worse than yours. I've experienced this longer than you have. And that benefits nobody, because the truth of the matter is, men and women have both experienced hurt to the same degree at different times in different places. So it's not like it's something new. It's not like men have just now started to feel being hurt. It's not like women have just now starting to experience, the fact of being used for money. Both sides have both been dealing with this for the same amount of time. As long as there have been humans and there have been people, there have been the same issues between both sides experience the same thing. The only difference is men have not been very vocal about what they have experienced or what hurts them. Because if you're a man, you're weak if you say too much. So both sides have actually experienced and dealt with the same thing. On the first part of the show, we left off talking about the whole paternity test thing. Should paternity tests be mandatory? And the thing about this is, women feel like it's sort of disrespectful. And who's going to pay for it? I say, personally, I feel like paternity tests should be mandatory. I really do. I think when a child is born into this world, a paternity test should automatically be done. But here's the thing. When a child is born into this world, they're already running all of these tests, blood tests, to make sure that the baby is healthy. So it's not like they're doing some type of test that's outside of the normal realms of checking for the baby's health. It'd be good to know the health of the mother and father as well. So it can be beneficial in both aspects. The only thing I see about this is, for men, is more the fact of, if you're going to put that guy's name on that birth certificate, you're verifying that he's the father. Now, I also agree. I think this. When the hospital say, would you like a paternity test? And they say, if the both parents say no, okay, you can decline it. If you want another one, then you got to pay for it on your own. But I do think that a paternity test should be mandatory. If you're putting somebody's name on some birth certificate, if that person is going to be legally obligated to take care of that child, let's make sure it's the right person and hold both parents accountable for ensuring that child is taken care of. I know everybody ain't going to agree with that, but that's the point of having this conversation, to express your views. And I know that a lot of times people say, oh, anytime a man and woman break up, it always comes about a paternity test. I think sometimes that's out of emotion on both sides. You can have it where the male feels hurt, and now he wants a paternity test to sort of hurt the woman. And sometimes the woman, is hurt. And she may say things like, it may not be yours anyway. So that's emotions. Emotions make people say crazy things, especially when it's matters of the heart and a person is hurt. But back to the topic. When we're talking about a person's emotions, we're talking about people having open dialogue conversations about these topics, and specifically men and women, it can be very taxing. And like I said, there could be a tick for tack thing. It could also be the problem of people deflecting. When we talked about that first topic, what do you bring to the table? A lot of the women deflected. They started to deflect. And when I say deflect, you guys know what I mean when I say deflect. But I'm country. But when they started to deflect, what you heard was a lot of, when the guy said, what do you feel you bring to the table? Oh, well, men just want sex. Okay, well, that wasn't the question. The question was, what do you bring to the table? And a lot of people start to deflect. Men and women do it. They start to deflect when they don't want to answer a question, or they start answering the question with a question to put it on someone else. But that's the thing that we got to be mindful of when we're having these open conversations. Be open to hearing another person's thoughts and views. Now, the third thing that I want to bring up, the third topic that I feel that men and women just can't seem to discuss without it turning into some type of heated, over emotional debate, is chivalry and the modern woman. When it comes to chivalry, we hear it all the time. Women saying that men don't open doors. Men are not gentlemen. Men don't know how to do this. They don't know how to be respectful. But we are living in a different time, because we do in some cases have women who want to be the modern woman, but they want a traditional man, but they don't want to be a traditional woman. So it's like the values and beliefs have sort of crossed and been slung all over the place, and nobody wants to be accountable for actually, like, if you want a traditional woman, then you're going to have to be that, you're going to play the role of that traditional man in some aspects. And the same thing for women. If you want a traditional man, then you're going to have to play the role in some aspects of a traditional woman. But each person is different. Each person is going to have different needs in a relationship. But when this conversation comes up, it turns into a heated debate, because you do have a different mindset regarding women today, because you have the whole thing of women saying, I'm independent. I don't need a man. I don't want a man. I don't need a man to do for me. But you still want the gestures and chivalry of a man opening the door, but that contradicts the fact of your independence as a woman, or a man doing something for you. I mean, I've even seen men get into arguments about going out on a date because the woman doesn't want the man to pay, because that's taking away her independence and she don't want to feel dependent on nobody. And it's just a big convoluted bubble that a lot of things could just be simple if people just go with the flow. But when you have this conversation, people really do get upset and they get in their feelings, because you can still be a strong woman and allow a man to take you out to dinner and pay for dinner. You can still be a strong man, even if the woman says, I want to treat you. She may just feel like you're a nice guy, and maybe you've been doing some, you've been nice and she's been really appreciative. She wants to show her appreciation. It doesn't mean that you're a weak man, but she maybe wants to do something nice for you. But anytime people have these conversations, a lot of emotions take over the conversation, because people start to pull from their past experiences, and they're using that as the motivational guide for how they're going to have the conversation. And we understand that people have been hurt, people have been burned. There are different things that play into a person's beliefs and ideas, things that have molded them to believe the things they believe. But what is it that we can do as men and women to sit down, have these conversations, engage in these conversations openly, peacefully, and listen to each other without attacking each other, without insulting a man's manhood, without insulting a woman's womanhood? And that's a lot of times what it turns into. You got women who will start really going at men and start questioning his manhood, like, oh, you're not a real man. If you was a real man, if you was anything to question his manhood and make him feel less like a man, or start to body shame him. And you got the same thing. You on the other side too, you have men who will do the same thing. They'll start to sort of, shame the woman, and try to make her question her womanhood. There has to be a way to understand that it's just a conversation. You don't have to really adopt everything they say. You're just hearing their views and opinions, but you don't have to make it a part of your life. But if you're going to be with that person, that's a whole different story. But if you're just having a conversation, man, you got to be open to other people's points of view. But part of these conversations are going to stem from us understanding that I got to go on the break. When I come back, I'm going to give you the big answer to this. I'm gonna lay it out. I'm gonna tell you why. But I gotta wait till after this break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Simply Straight Talk family. Your host, Reggie, will be right back. So don't you dare touch that dial. Hello, Simply Straight Talk family. If you are enjoying this episode, at the end of the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And why not share this with a friend? Also, visit our blog at newlifenewmind.com, where you can find additional articles on more great topics. Stay tuned. The show will continue right after this message.
Are you ready for the straight truth? Reggie, what's the final word for today?
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Welcome back to the final word and final thoughts of today's show. Man, listen, today we talked about 3 topics that men and women just can't discuss without getting into an overheated, argumentative discussion. But listen, here's my take on this. The reason why men and women can't really have these discussions sometimes, I'm not going to say everybody can't have them, but most of the time when men and women can't have these discussions is because they are pulling from their emotional experiences, or it's either based on something they've experienced in their life, something that a friend or family member has, dealt with. So now this is them putting all of that on the table. So sometimes when you talk about a person being asked, what do you bring to the table? Should paternity tests be mandatory? Chivalry and the modern woman. Sometimes when these discussions comes up, a person is just really pulling from within themselves. There are things that they feel inside that when these discussions are hashed out, and then it's different when you got women sitting around having a conversation and when you got men sitting around having a conversation. But when you got a person of the opposite sex sitting in front of you and you're having this conversation and you're thinking about women thinking about the men that they have dealt with, or men their friends or family members have dealt with, or men thinking about the relationships they dealt with women, or things that their male friends and family members have dealt with and what they went through, those emotions rise to the surface and actually come out in the conversation. It may be things that they have never said, things they have thought about, but they just never really had a chance to speak it to a woman in a conversation like this. And the same thing for women. They've had the conversation with other women, but this is the first time they've had a real open conversation with other men. And when something is said that hits a nerve or reflects back to something that was maybe said to them or done to them, it triggers an emotional response that creates a conversation that definitely makes the conversation become argumentative more than productive. And the hard thing about it is, when you have these conversations, we have to understand that the purpose of these conversations is to really just have a better understanding of that other person's individual views. You may not agree with it, you may not like it, but the thing about it is, you are just having a conversation. And sometimes you can learn and grow from that. But like I said earlier in the second part of the show, a lot of times when men and women try to have these types of conversations, not just on these 3 topics that I mentioned, but other conversations, the problem comes about of going tick for tack. Like I said, men and women will go tick for tack. They'll try to shame the other, question a man's manhood, question a woman's womanhood, and you oftentimes try to put problems and issues that are derived from other past emotional experiences onto the person that you're talking to. And you just have to accept the fact that this is their belief and leave it at that. Don't try to get into a situation to where you're fighting a battle in a conversation with somebody that's not there. A lot of people, when they have these conversations, they're not really having the conversation with the people that's sitting in front of them. They're having a conversation with a ghost. They're having a conversation with their past. And that's what they're dealing with right now. That's the conversation they're having. You think that they're mad at you. You think the conversation is at a war with you. You have a verbal conversation that's turned into a war between the two of you, when the truth is, they're fighting and speaking in a verbal war against their past, against a ghost, against somebody they probably haven't spoken to in years. That's just the facts of the whole thing. That's the truth. You know what I'm saying? And you heard it right here on Simply Straight Talk. So listen, y'all drop me a line, man. Share in the comments what you think about this conversation. And just share your thoughts with me. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you feel about it. Have you been in these situations? Have you had these conversations? How did it play out? What are your suggestions for men and women to sit down and discuss topics like these and just have a good open dialogue and still be able to laugh and shake hands and walk away at the end? Hey, this is Reggie, man. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you for checking out the show. And don't forget, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Share your comments, and I will hit y'all up, and we'll be back next Friday.
That's it for this week's episode of the Simply Straight Talk podcast. Be sure to sign up to our email list at simplystraighttalk.com and follow us in your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss our next episode. Wishing you a wonderful day from the Simply Straight Talk crew.
Simply Straight Talk with your host Reggie B. Come on, let's all join in. Free your voice, it's your choice, all right here. Oh, Simply Straight Talk.